Pompeii was destroyed by one volcano. Around 1200 BC, cities across the eastern Mediterranean burned or lost the governments that had ruled them. Mycenaean palaces fell, the Hittite Empire disappeared, and Ugarit warned of enemy ships before it was destroyed and never rebuilt. Egypt claimed it defeated the invaders now called the Sea Peoples. But some cities survived. The supposed conquerors built no empire over the ruins, and several crises had begun before they arrived. To understand what ended the world behind Homer, we have to begin with a ship that sank while that world was still working. The Uluburun ship went down off the coast of modern Turkey more than a century before the worst destruction. It carried roughly 10 tons of copper and 1 ton of tin, the essential ingredients of bronze. Around them were glass, ivory, ebony, jewelry, pottery, and food connected to several regions. This 15-meter vessel carried a small version of the known world. Copper and tin traveled enormous distances before reaching the same workshop, while kings exchanged gifts, royal brides, threats, and requests for military help. The network made every palace richer, but allowed failure in one kingdom to arrive in another kingdom's harbor. Ugarit prospered by connecting inland powers to Mediterranean trade. Its final archives mention enemy ships, towns attacked by fire, and forces far from home. King Amurapi explains in one reply that his troops and chariots are in Hittite territory, while his ships are elsewhere. His country has been left to itself. It sounds like the final message of a doomed city, but the popular version is too perfect. The surviving letters cannot be arranged into a secure countdown to Ugarit's last night. Even the repeated story of a final tablet waiting inside a kiln when the attackers arrived is not treated as secure. The truth is more unsettling. Ugarit's defenses were dispersed across the system that was beginning to fail. Its soldiers, ships, and supplies could all be elsewhere when danger reached home. Around the beginning of the 12th century BC, Ugarit was destroyed, its royal line ended, and the city was never rebuilt. During the same broad period, Mycenaean Greece broke apart. Mycenae, Tiryns, Pylos, Thebes, and other centers did not fall on one date or in one identical attack. Some were partly rebuilt. Pylos never returned as a functioning palace. The palaces had gathered grain, livestock, textiles, weapons, labor, and offerings into a centralized administration. Linear B tablets recorded that system in the earliest surviving form of Greek. When the administration vanished, Linear B also fell out of use. Greek-speaking communities survived, familiar gods remained, and stories traveled beyond the palaces. Centuries later, Homer sang of wealthy kings, bronze weapons, royal gifts, and fleets crossing the sea. The poems are not eyewitness accounts, but they preserve the shape of a world archaeology confirms once existed. The heroes outlived the institutions behind their world. The most famous suspect appears at Medinet Habu in Egypt. Rameses III ordered scenes of his victory over groups moving by land and sea, including captured warriors and families traveling with carts. Modern historians later collected several groups named there under one label, the Sea Peoples. They were real, and violence affected settlements across the region. But Medinet Habu was a royal victory monument, not a neutral record of who destroyed each city. Its names do not identify one nation or one army advancing across the Mediterranean. Some groups were known earlier, and some had served as mercenaries. Then comes the question the invasion theory struggles to answer. If these were conquerors powerful enough to destroy the Bronze Age world, where is the empire they created afterward? There is none. The aftermath is fragmented. The people moving toward Egypt may have included raiders, soldiers, migrants, displaced families, and communities searching for land. They could have contributed to the destruction while also being products of crises already forcing people onto the move. They may not have started the collapse. They may have been carrying it with them. The next suspect leaves no battle scene. Pollen and sediment records from parts of Cyprus and coastal Syria indicate dry conditions around the crisis, while Hittite documents preserve urgent concern about grain. Failed harvests could reduce food, raise prices, displace families, and deprive rulers of the surplus needed to support workers and soldiers. Yet drought cannot burn a palace by itself. Climate evidence varies by location, and societies exposed to similar pressure did not all collapse. Earthquakes, internal conflict, disease, invasion, and inequality have also been proposed. Each explains part of the evidence. None explains every destruction and every survivor. The strongest answer may therefore be a chain rather than a culprit. After poor harvests, less grain reaches the palace, but the court still has officials, craftsmen, soldiers, temples, and allies to support. The ruler demands more from villages that have less to give. Trade becomes dangerous, a vital shipment fails to arrive, and soldiers move to protect one border while leaving another exposed. Families flee, raiders exploit the weakness, and a neighboring kingdom loses the supplier or ally it expected to survive. No single failure ends the system. Each one makes the next harder to absorb. That is why the Uluburun cargo belongs in the same story as Ugarit's ruins. The network that carried copper, tin, ivory, glass, letters, and royal gifts across extraordinary distances also carried shortage and political instability. Interdependence created extraordinary wealth, but it allowed local emergencies to become international ones. Even then, the entire ancient world did not collapse. Egypt survived, though weakened. Assyria continued. Carchemish preserved a ruling line connected to the Hittite royal house. Communities in Cyprus and the Levant adapted, while people in Greece continued farming, sailing, working metal, speaking Greek, and worshipping familiar gods outside the vanished palace system. What ended was not civilization everywhere. It was a particular way of organizing power. Pompeii preserves the moment when one city lost its future. The end of the Bronze Age preserves something harder to see: ordinary life continuing while the institutions that organized the world stopped working. No surviving tablet announces that civilization is collapsing. Each ruler sees only an enemy ship, a missing grain shipment, an absent army, or a request for help that no ally can answer. Only from a distance do those separate emergencies become one historical age. The fires are visible. The first failure in the chain is not. So which deserves to be called the first domino? Drought, invasion, internal revolt, or a system that depended on every part working? Tell us which piece of evidence persuades you most. And if someone still believes the Sea Peoples ended this world by themselves, share this investigation with them. The ruins tell a more difficult story.